Alrighty, guys. So welcome to our 2024 Amazon fees breakdown webinar. We've got our beautiful guests here, Vincenzo Toscano and Amit Rosenthal of Proboxx. I'm your host, Amanda, and Proboxx is your all-in-one digital logistics provider where you can manage your quotes, see your shipments in real time, upload your documents, and chat to the team anytime for a superior freight forwarding experience. It's all in your own digitalized, personalized portal. 24/7 access. So check us out. There's going to be a special offer at the end as well for any new customers that want a shipping discount or just want to sort of see how the portal works. There's a chance to book a free demo with us. So let's get into it, guys. The Amazon fees for 2024. I don't know if any of you guys out there, when you saw that come through from Amazon, you're like, what the fuck? So I just thought the best person to probably share this information and to really break it down for us would be Vincenzo Toscano. Vincenzo's got tons and tons of Amazon experience, has his own Amazon agency called Ecomcy, and Amit also has over 15 years of logistics experience and has a flair for helping problem solve and save on shipments. So welcome, guys. For all of you joining us live, thank you so much for joining. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll answer them for you during our time together. Now, I guess the first question for me, and this will be for both of you guys, is the one that the inbound placement fee for standard and large bulky size items. So how could sellers strategically adjust their shipping practices to minimize the impact of that newly introduced inbound placement fee?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for the introduction, Amanda, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to share here the stage with you and Emmett. Yes, to basically answer the first question. So essentially, we are seeing a big push now from Amazon to be more strict when it comes to their fee structure at the logistic level, and this initial fee is definitely one of their efforts to mitigate that. We're seeing basically how they're essentially telling you if you decide to send to only one location against multiple locations, you're basically going to be penalized with that, right? I guess the conversation in 2024 is going to come down to really understanding your shipping, basically price points, if you're gonna ship from the west or the east coast, and see if it's gonna be more efficient for you to ship to only one location or multiple locations, because it's gonna be a subcharge now if you decide to only send a shipment to one location specifically. Why is that? Because of course Amazon has realized that some sellers, what they were doing, they were sending all the inventory, let's say, to the Florida area, Miami, one of the biggest ports in the States. And then, of course, Amazon was getting the burden of shipping then all your units across the States to all the different warehouses, of course. And this is starting to become very expensive for them internally. Now, essentially, what they want to say, okay, we can waive this fee for you. And instead of you shipping to only one location, we're going to give you multiple locations for you to ship in. So essentially now that only shipping everything to one warehouse to Florida, they might say, okay, send here on the West Coast and the East Coast, and therefore for them it's easier to make sure that inventory is more widely available across all the United States, and they can deliver on the promise of next day delivery and so on. So yeah, that's one of the biggest push. Yeah.
I think that's a disadvantage though for Amazon sellers, because I know when you choose that multiple option to send into FBA centers, it can take a really long time for them to be checked in. So it feels like there's no workaround anymore, really, unless you want to pay the fee.
Yes, so, I think go on, Amit.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think that one of the biggest things is that Amazon is trying to basically control all the freight chains, starting from like freight forwarding to distribution eventually. And one of the biggest things they're trying to do is, of course, to gain more sellers to use Amazon Global Logistics. And basically what they said, that if you're going to choose us as the freight forwarder, So we will not split your shipment to three pairs, but you'll be able to send it to one location, and that's a huge advantage to those who want to use Amazon Global Logistics solution. There is a lot of disadvantage, and I think Vincenzo can maybe elaborate about that more. But that one thing. The second thing is that from what I heard from many sellers that now, as Vincenzo said, Amazon will split, most likely they will split your inventory to three pairs across the states. It will sure increase your overall freight charges, okay? Because if you take, I don't know, 30 CBM for this example and split it to 10, 10, and 10 to multiple location, the overall freight charges will be higher compared if you will take the 30 CBM and send it to one location. But Amazon basically provide a rebate or a refund if you send it to three pairs, okay? So eventually, you have to consider what is the total freight charges that you need to pay and what is the rebate you will basically get from Amazon back to your account for that sending this inventory in. So in terms of charge, eventually you have to calculate between the overall charge and what you will gain back from Amazon on that sending this to free destination. I would say, Amanda, that it is, at least that's what Amazon said, that the inbound process will take maybe longer, but there is also some advantage in sending and splitting the goods to multiple destinations. First of all, you decrease the chance of custom inspection happened, so you still have inventory going to the FBA. Sometimes, there is delays in the vessel, whatever, if you're sending to multiple locations. So basically what you do, you decrease the overall chance that if something happened to one freight, so the second and the third batch will go most likely smooth. So always, when we're talking about freight forwarding now, so there is always pros and cons to whatever decision you take. But overall, as a seller, you have to try to look on the overall picture and take a decision accordingly.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think it all comes.
sorry, Vincenzo.
Sorry, Amanda.
No,
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Amir was saying. I think at the end of the day, it's not a black or white decision that you always have to do with multiple locations, because sometimes sending to a single location, pay the premium will make sense, given the fact that if you then take in consideration the extra fees to sending to multiple locations by yourself, it might be less profitable on your margin. So it all comes down to breaking down that table that Amazon has in terms of what are going to be the fees based on weight and dimensions, and then comparing one table if you send to one single location compared to multiple locations, and just dynamically make the decision on every shipment you do to the States based on the prices you get on your freight forwarding. And that's it.
Yeah. And I guess also taking into consideration lead time for allowing that extra time if you're choosing multiple locations. Or maybe you have a situation where you have to get things urgently and you just choose one location. I don't know, but I guess it's very dependent on your situation.
Yeah. So Amanda, on that, if I can add, so you always have to consider the transit time in sense of okay, even if Amazon send you to one location, what is the location? Because if it's in the East Coast, right? So the transit time would be roughly 45 to 50 days, okay, from departure time. But if Amazon split it to three locations, one in the East Coast, one in the mid-center of the state, and one in the West Coast, so eventually the transit time will be shorter, because the one batch going to the West Coast will be much shorter in terms of transit time. It will take something about 30 days. So one batch will take 30 days, the other one will take 50 days, and the third one will take, I don't know, 40 or 45 days. So eventually, it's balance between the options, and a seller needs to take a decision based on the inventory limit he has, and basically based on the stock he has, and take a decision accordingly.
Yeah. Something I want to add, so we can also start concluding this point, is I also have seen a huge impact in organic exposure based on the distribution of your inventory across the states. And this is mainly because, let's say you're selling I don't know, like a water bottle, right? And most of your inventory is on the East Coast, and somebody on the West Coast is looking for that water bottle. Most likely, you're not going to appear organically as high as your competitors, because your competitors have inventory in the West compared to yourself. And therefore, Amazon internally, they're going to prioritize the ones that they can promise the delivery of next day or same day, compared to you that they will have internally to ship inventory from one coast to another. So having inventory efficiently distributed across the states is definitely having an impact in organic ranking. And therefore, you essentially, in summary, the more inventory you have distributed across the states, you're going to have better exposure to people looking for that specific keyword across that specific zip code.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
big,
that's huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
really big consideration. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So the next big one, I guess, is the decrease in the FBA fulfillment fees. How do they how can sellers also leverage the fulfillment fee discount in the ship and product packaging if you're eligible for that? I mean, yeah, a lot of people may have products that they can change. Is there an easy option to do? How do we navigate the decrease in fulfillment fees and leverage that as well?
Yeah. So yeah, essentially, for those that don't know, this program is called SIPP, so ships in product packaging. So essentially, Amazon, in order to keep giving you the option to have a fee discount, we're talking between 4p to I think $1.3 per in terms of fees that you get as a discount. It means that now you can essentially, your box can be the cardboard that would get declined. So you wouldn't have the other packaging and all the protection. So essentially, Amazon say, okay, as we receive it in the warehouse, that's how it's gonna go out in terms of to the customer. Of course, it has certain criteria that has to meet in terms of, the drop test and other things that you have to follow in terms of the packaging. But this can be a huge advantage, especially when competing on competitive categories where maybe people haven't redesigned their packaging to be used as basically the shipping packaging in the first place, because by reducing this on average $1 per shipment, you can have that extra margin against your competitors that can help you mitigate other expenses or use a store PPC or things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it would be product dependent too, because you wouldn't want, I personally don't think it would be a great idea to choose that option if you say, for example, had a glass product or something that was easily breakable, because you see some of the ways that these packages turn up from Amazon, even with the extra box, it's still damaged or broken or ripped. So yeah, I think it would be a consideration to think about. But yes, it would say, and also great for the environment. I think a lot of people find that appealing. Ivan had a question about that. He said, would that be the same as Amazon frustration-free packaging program? Do you know much about that, Vincenzo? I haven't heard of it.
Yes, I have heard of that one, but it's not the same. It's different, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have
Vincenzo,
to double check that. Go. Yep.
Vincenzo, why should Amazon decrease the fees? Like what's the, I don't know,
So I mean,
rationality behind it, basically?
so it's essentially the reason why that would be different is because first of all, Amazon now doesn't need to waste money into the cardboard, the Amazon cardboard, and the paper and things that they
Yeah.
put inside, and they don't need to pay the person to do that wrapping. So all those are economics they are basically saving, and that's directly translated into you, which first of all is good for them from the perspective of having less overhead. It's good in terms of the environmental things, so you can use that towards your advantage. But again, the downside is that you really need to make sure your packaging is prepared for that, because what is going to happen is if it's not, it can easily get it can backfire you, like negative reviews, especially if your box is designed to be like a gift. and then you receive the product is so like bent with with dirt and all of that. So that's the downside, and sometimes you have to put that into a balance, right? Do you really want to save that extra maybe dollar, but have that package that we know how we get the boxes sometimes from Amazon, they throw them around and all of that. So that's the thing. It has to be a box that really can sustain the impact. And just to add on top of the frustration program, just in case, because I just remember I didn't elaborate on that. The main difference is that the frustration one is a program where it has to do recyclable, right? It's basically a program where your packaging is meant to have certain recyclable criteria, and basically that allow you to get into that program. But this one is different than the program we're talking about, because the program we're talking about, which is shipped basically within its own box, the packaging itself doesn't have to be recyclable. It's only about the fact that the packaging can withstand the damage that it can sustain through transit. So there are two different things. One, it has to do with recyclable approach, and one has to do with the fact that your box is ready to be thrown around, basically. Yeah, that's the main difference.
Yeah. I think I was reading an article about these fee changes before I obviously got you guys together, and somebody did the calculations, and even with like the FBA fulfillment fee changes, like the actual fulfillment fee being decreased, by the time you added in all those other extra little things we're going to talk about very soon, it still works out that you're going to be paying more. So they kind of try and hoodwink you to thinking that you're getting a good deal on these fee changes when really they're not. There's so many more hidden fees, and it's so much to work out now. Ivan just said a big minus for me would be that the return products might be disposed if the box is damaged.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
So,
that's a huge thing on in transportation in general. Like, you don't believe how many times I see like sellers that doesn't produce the right like master box for the product, and you have to acknowledge that like during transportation. And we all saw the videos that UPS, Amazon throw the package away, like whatever. But you have to also recognize that the transportation going from China, India, whatever, wherever each one are sourcing to the FBA is simply crazy. Okay, the number of hands that are handling the goods during transportation, the containers floating around at sea is crazy. It's crazy. So you always have to put a huge emphasis on the master box and on the packaging itself. Otherwise, a big problem will occur later on, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk about the juicy one that we've all been wanting to discuss and dissect, is the low inventory level fee. That's a doozy. So I want to know also, like, what's the strategy behind managing this? Because, what about new sellers? What about people who have seasonal stock? How does a seller strategize and manage this low inventory fee? How are they going to avoid it? Like it's help.
Yeah, so I would say this one goes tied to what I'm seeing with all the brands that we manage. Is the same thing that Amazon has realized, like we cannot afford anymore for people to send only 100 200 units, and then we have to carry the burden of carry your products across the states because you made a sale, I don't know, in Alaska or somewhere very remote, and because you didn't have enough inventory, pretty much had to lose a ton of money to get your product across the states, right? So that's the play here. They want to make sure they have now enough inventory across their fulfillment centers. Therefore, if you have a sale in New York and your inventory is in LA, they don't have to ship from one coast to another. They might just get inventory across the New York area. So that's why they want to put this penalty so people now have enough inventory in hand, and therefore Amazon is gonna try to compensate that situation. Now, Something that you can do to mitigate this is just use historical data. So what we do, this is for, I'm gonna give you two scenarios if you're a new seller and if you're not. If you're not a new seller, you've already been selling, something I will do is just have a look at what happened last year during a specific month, a specific Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. Try to estimate the amount of sales you made during that period from previous year. And I usually try to add a 20-30% increase because that's usually what I try to increase year after year in terms of growth. And then that's usually the amount of inventory I will try to have in hand to make sure I don't go overstock, but at the same time I have enough inventory in hand that will allow me to stay within the average amount of sales I make and also compensate towards growth, right? So that's the first thing I will do. And then if you're a seller that you're new, you don't have really a idea of what is going to happen with the sales. If you have brand analytics, which you need to have a trademark to get access to this, you get access to brand registry, and with brand registry, you have access to brand analytics. You have access to historical data, right? So you can go back up to 9 months, if I'm not mistaken. And what you can do is essentially, let's say you want to know what happened last year during, June or July, because you want to prepare for this June, July. You have a look at what some of your what some of the keywords were doing on that specific period. If the search volume was in terms of increasing, what some of your competitors, what were some of the best sellers during that period, and then I would reverse engineer those competitors by using something like Helium 10 or some of those tools to see what is the amount of sales they are currently making, and try to extrapolate that and basically come up with a plan like, okay, for June, July, this on average, the the traffic this keyword was getting, these were the top competitors, this is historically what they were selling. I'm going to try to replicate that to have inventory similar to them at a reduced rate because you're a new seller. And that could be a good way to have an educated estimation of the amount of inventory you should have in hand. Yeah.
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 And what about it, the inventory limits so that Amazon place on you as a new seller? Does that have an effect on this low inventory fee as well? Is it going to be a bit of a juggling act between what you can bring in, what you can sell, and how to maintain that once you start to get some sales on the board?
Yeah. So the important thing to consider here is that when you basically are enrolled into the program new to FBA program for the first 180 days, and this is a program you need to apply, and as a new seller, most people can apply. For 180 days, you're gonna get this fee waived, right? That means for 180 days, you're not gonna incur any charges when it comes to this. And then essentially what you can do to mitigate the low inventory estimation is going to be a dashboard. First of all, the dashboard is going to be a graph, and the graph is going to tell you based on the baseline that Amazon designs where you have to be. So that graph is going to make it very easy for you to understand in the first place how you can mitigate that. And also when it comes to inventory levels for new sellers, Amazon is being is giving you a good space for most people, especially for what they're looking to sell in the first few months. So I wouldn't say you should have an issue when it comes to, unless you tell me you want to send 10,000 units, which for most people, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
But I think for most sellers with a new account, with the allocation they're giving to new sellers and the waiving of the fees, you hopefully should be able to navigate this issue easier than established sellers. Yeah.
Yeah. What about in a stock out situation when, say, you've been out of stock for a while? How are they going to manage that? Will they use any previous historical data, even if it's a while ago, to work out what your low inventory levels will be?
Yeah. So I think the way it's gonna work, and this is, of course, this hasn't gone into effect. It's gonna be the 1st of April. So there are still certain things that they're not 100% clear. I estimate the reason for that is because by then, most likely they're gonna go more in depth about the KPIs they're gonna track and all of that. But based on what they usually do with this kind of fees and the way this kind of account health metrics are tracked by Amazon, most likely it's gonna be a 60 to 90-day window tracking, right? They're gonna go 60, 90 days to the past. They're gonna see what you have done. And therefore, if you went for out of stock for a long period of time, this is gonna definitely be a huge negative thing for you, because if you go out of stock for 60, 90 days, and that's the data Amazon is looking at, then unfortunately, based on what they're saying in the literature in terms of the new policy, that's gonna be very bad in terms of fees for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like
Amanda,
no exception. Yeah.
Amanda, I have a question or a point to raise to Vincenzo. Many of the Amazon groups, at least I'm connecting with and talking with some sellers, there is a lot of rumors about like purchasing inventory space at Amazon now, like additional space. A lot of rumors, what does it mean, how much it costs, etc., etc. Maybe Vincenzo, you can elaborate about that a bit more, because I think it
Yeah.
can be a good option for those who need a bit more space for their inventory.
Yeah. So essentially, let's say, and this applies for both established and new sellers. Let's say the allocated inventory for you is basically not enough. You are falling into the situation that you need more inventory. Essentially, now what Amazon does is that allows you to enter into like a bidding system, right? You can say, I'm willing to buy this X amount of extra space, and I'm willing to bid X amount above the normal rate per cubic meter. And then essentially, depending on what the market is willing to pay during the month. For example, in December is one of the worst months to do this, because everybody is trying to overbid to get that extra volume within Amazon warehouses. You're gonna do a bidding, and based on the bidding, you say, okay, I'm willing to pay X extra per cubic meter. And then if you get approved, then the way you get billed is like you get approved, and then it's like you get penalized if you don't get usage of that. That's essentially the way it works. So you are willing to give the extra bidding. You say, I'm willing to pay this extra amount for the space. But then once you do that, and they give you the X amount of extra volume within Amazon warehouses, and you don't basically clear that within the month that you were supposed to clear, that's where the penalty kicks in and gets very expensive. So if you're really going into a period that you know you're going to have a lot of sales, it's definitely a good option to explore. I guess the issue comes where what Amazon wants to avoid is that you do this because you want to use their warehouses as basically a fulfillment, like a warehouse essentially, and that's the limitation they're putting. So yes, we're gonna give you the extra volume, and this is the fee potentially you could pay. But if you don't make usage of that, or you don't basically clear the space by this period, the bulk fee is gonna kick in, and that's where it gets expensive very fast. Yeah.
Right. And I have another one for you, and that's something that 2 days ago I had a long conversation with one of my biggest clients. What is the alternative in sense of like helping sellers regarding the inventory stock limit using AWD Center? And I'm not sure if anyone knows here what it is, AWD. Uh, but like in one sentence, it means like AWD is the solution Amazon provides to be like not a fulfillment center, but like as a storage center. And there is a lot of advantage and disadvantage in using AWD, but in terms of space, Vincenzo, how can it help sellers putting the cargo at AWD and shift like small batches to FBA when they need it?
Actually, can I just jump in before
Yes.
I get to Vincenzo?
Sure.
That was actually a question I was going to ask you both, because that is something that Amazon have said, that if you use AWD, they'll waive the low inventory level fee. So again, it feels like they're pushing people into their services. But yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so essentially, this is a program, Amazon tried to create their own ecosystem in terms of using them as not only as a marketplace, but also like they help you with warehousing and all of that. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to uh, having a look at the fees and see if it makes sense for you. I think, of course, one of the advantages you can definitely have a look at is the fact that everything's going to be within the Amazon network. So you could assume things are going to move faster to if you need to ship to, you need to create a shipment within Amazon. Of course, the inventory is already with the Amazon premises in certain, to some instance, so it's going to move faster. However, the concern I'm hearing more and more is the fact that given the fact that it becomes like a 3PL, they're gonna have access to your IP, like your suppliers and everything who ships in and all that. That's the concern some people have. You're essentially giving all your business information to Amazon, like where things are coming from, everything from A to Z. But at the end of the day, if the fees make sense for you and it's gonna help you on the bottom line, I will say it all comes down to testing. I will always test things that Amazon roll out because you never know if it will actually be beneficial. But just be mindful of the things I already mentioned, like it's always a concern when new things roll out from Amazon side, like what they're gonna do with my information, the competition, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Amanda,
believe it on AWD, but also Ivan's just mentioned AWD ships the product automatically if you're low on inventory, so the seller doesn't have to worry. So it's comfortable, but the fact that I would not have control on what and when is shipped is too big of a risk for me. So it sounds like you're losing a lot of control over shipments. They just do.
Amanda, Amanda, the biggest thing, in my opinion, the advantage in AWD, and again, I can talk now for 10 minutes at least about the disadvantage, especially from logistics side, but the biggest advantage, in my opinion, that when you create a shipment going to FBA center, let's say in China, the inventory already it's basically once you created the shipping plan, so the inventory already calculated as it is already in Amazon, okay? So it can affect a lot your stock limit, all right? But when you create a shipping and send it to AWD, so the inventory is not already in your Amazon account or calculate into your Amazon stock level. And I think from a seller point of view, that's the biggest advantage in shipping to AWD. Regardless, there is a lot of disadvantages as well. But in terms of stock limit, when you create a shipment, let's say, I don't know, three 3,000 units, all right? So when you create it in China, so it's already in your stock limit in Amazon. And remember that you have about when you're just creating the shipping plan, then you have to pick up a freight forwarder, send the goods to FBA. So let's say the journey is at least 60 days, okay? So you cut the 60 days from your inventory limit. But if you open it to AWD, so it doesn't. So I think this is the biggest advantage in using AWD in general.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us some
I
of the
think
advantages because I think that people need to hear them too to make a good decision.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, please. Sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to add that something that I think the thing I don't like about AWD is the fact that let's say you have to do something with your inventory, and this happens a lot for us Amazon sellers.
Yeah,
You have a
removal.
quality issue, you have to check the pool of inventory, you have to add an insert card, you have to remove certain things because or you need to add certain things on the box because the manufacturer forgot. You need to repackage so many things. It's gonna be a mess. You send all inventory in, you have to remove it again because you forgot something, you send it again. So they're not offering that personalized service. It just you dump everything here, and if you need to fix the inventory, you have to remove it. And that's the only downside I would say is as of right now. Maybe they add that as an added service down the line. But if you really need that direct access to your inventory because of the things I already mentioned, which is common as an Amazon seller,
Yeah.
that's a bad thing because I feel like it's gonna be like a black box. Like your inventory goes in, but you don't really have direct access. Like if you need to, you know, within the same day have something fixed within your inventory. So that's the only thing you also have to consider. Yeah.
I heard so many rumors, Vincenzo, that removal can take from AWD. Like even removal from FBA can be a nightmare, but from AWD can be a huge nightmare. I heard some sellers it took like about 6 months to get the
Imagine, yeah.
inventory back outside of the AWD. So okay, I don't know, not 6 months, but 3 months is also crazy, especially if you need to make a small adjustment. So yeah, so again, in Amazon, I think there is advantage and disadvantage for any program, I guess, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, interesting. It's like they set these services up, but then the infrastructure is not really there to fully support the seller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, that's why it's affordable, because they're making it as simplistic as possible, and they're removing a lot of the things that you will get by a premium service. Like you don't have direct customer service, you don't have a direct line of contact. It's just their black box. You dump everything there. Yes, it's cheaper, but if something goes wrong, God bless, and wait for things to be fixed. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Did you want to share any more about your experience of getting goods into AWD? Like the time?
Yeah, so I can say that in like last year was really a nightmare of the nightmare. There was some shipments that it took like, and again, I don't want to enter into how like processing the appointment with Amazon in general, okay? But I would say that we had some like issue that it took 3 to 4 months to place an appointment with AWD, and it's crazy. The storage like that we had to apply on our customer was crazy, and we had nothing to do about it because Amazon doesn't allow an LTL truck delivery to AWD. Rather, now you can, and last year you couldn't even choose UPS or any other carrier as such to deliver to AWD. So rather you have to wait for appointment or to ask for Amazon Global Logistics to pick up the freight, but it took like about 2 months ahead. So it was crazy. Now the appointment time got better. Like we had some in some cases it took about 2 weeks. Some cases it took 3 weeks. So it's relatively okay, at least compared to what it used to be. But it's much more harder to set appointment with AWD compared to FBA in general. That I would say for sure.
Okay, good point. So all things to consider, even though that low inventory fee gets waived, there's lots of other traps to think about. You choose
I
to.
think, Amanda, eventually it's all about like your needs, your stock level, how fast do you need the inventory in the FBA ready to sell. If you have a lot of inventory and if you want to decrease, let's say, your overall purchasing rate from your supplier and you want to increase the volume of your order, so this can be a good option, right? So scale the order, decrease the rate per unit, send it to AWD for long storage, and split it there to FBA. So it's all about your strategy
Yeah.
and place your plan accordingly.
Yeah. Great tips, guys. All right, let's get on to the monthly storage fee reduction. So how can sellers work that to their advantage? It's a 0.09 per cubic foot reduction. So is there some way that sellers can maximize this incentive?
So yeah, I would say something that you can be very clever about here is like doing between the January to September period. Now you can essentially take advantage of the reduced fees and essentially use to some extent Amazon as a warehouse for more units than normal. Of course, always taking consideration over stocks and the time you've been having this inventory within the premises. But considering that it's new inventory, let's say you have a huge bulk of extra inventory that you have in hand. This is inventory that doesn't have any age within Amazon. So what I mean by age is it hasn't hit Amazon, so it's not gonna hit the long-term storage fees. You can say, okay, but between January and September, I can put them there momentarily if I want to save maybe on having my own warehouse or if I don't have space to keep this inventory. In the meantime, you can get the momentum of sales and get ready for Q4. So essentially, during this January to September, if you are very strategic by doing extra amount of strategy at the PPC level, being more aggressive with pricing, getting position organically, and all that, because you have more inventory at your disposal, and therefore you can move more inventory and generate that sales momentum that can save you toward Q4. And then on Q4, you can drill down into having less inventory and try to basically take advantage of both the growth that you had throughout Q1 to Q3 without having the burning of inventory fees, and then on Q4 leverage the growth that brought to your business in terms of organic exposure that you were building for this last Q1, Q2, and Q3. Yeah.
Great strategy, because you could also start to think about a marketing strategy during that time. You could run special offers, you can have some sort of external marketing campaign running to help take advantage of it and hopefully maximize your profit or your net margin or your net profit margin. Returns processing fee changes. The categories other than apparel and shoes. What strategies should sellers employ to minimize the impact of the returns processing fee on high return rate products?
Yeah. So if you're selling like electronics, clothing, things that have a huge a high rate of returns, this is gonna be a tough one because fees are gonna go up when it comes to that. Something that we need to be clear about the returning processing fee. Based on what they're mentioning, this applies to if there is a high return rate. So we're talking like if the average is 3-5%, you are at 15-10%, that's when it's gonna kick in. It's not gonna apply for every single return. It's basically like an account health thing. If you hit certain performance KPIs, that's when the rate is gonna kick in. So that's why you need to be very methodical and making sure you don't reach that. So it's essentially a new metric. Return rate is always a metric that we had to track because it affects account health, and account health can affect like buy box and other things. But now it's more important than ever because on top of that, you're also going to be hit by a fee. So I guess here things that you need to be very diligent is, and this is something I always advise everybody to do, is making sure that you're on top of what customers are saying. Like have a look at voice of the customer, the reviews, what is the repetitive issue people are complaining about? Is it the box? Is it the feature? Is it the accessory? Whatever. Try to fix that. And sometimes most of the issues on return come because of you're not meeting the expectations of the customer. It has to do with something you're over promising and they're not getting the promise that you put on the listing. So make sure your images are as representative as they should be, especially when it comes to do with things that have to do with size. Sometimes size on an image can be very deceiving because you think it's a size. Like let's say you buy I don't know, like a decoration for your living room, and you see the whatever is the decoration on the image, you put it on a 3D rendering, or you use like Midjourney or some ChatGPT to create a fake living room, and on that image, the let's say the decoration, like a statue or whatever, looks much bigger than, and when they get it, it's like a small figurine, like 10 centimeters or something. That's where you need to be careful. Like with sizes, something that works a lot. On the image, always use things that are representative to the size. So, for example, if you're selling, I don't know, like a remote, as an example, make sure next to it, as an example, you could put like a pencil or like a coin or something that's an everyday life of the person, so they know how the product looks in real life once they get it. And also with colors, make sure colors are as accurate as possible, because that's another mistake. Sometimes people want to edit a little bit the colors so they're more vibrant, or they pop more, but then maybe the red now looks more like an orange, and when they get it, it's not reflective of what is on the image. And the final thing, it has to do with over promising certain things, like in terms of feature or quality and things like that, and then people get it and it's not what they were expecting. if you attack those 3 points, like most of the time, the situation with returns is decreased significantly. And instructions, that's a huge one. Make sure your instructions are as clear as possible. Add videos to your listings, add a QR code to your instruction that go to a landing page where you add extra material about how to use the product or different guidelines, especially with electronics. If you don't do that, that's where the high returns start to kick in, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I'm also amazed, even sometimes just when I'm browsing on Amazon and I'm looking at listings or products, that there's still a lot of products that don't even have even like a little infographic that has dimensions of the product on it. So you can get a really good feel for the actual measurements, or even a video, like you said, Vincenzo, of like how to use the product is a really handy thing. So you're covering all the bases before they make the purchase to avoid those returns. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, I think I've covered it all. I want to just ask you guys that have joined us if you've got any last burning questions before we sign off on the fees for 2024. Does everything feel a bit clearer now? Clear as mud? Everyone's good? More or less. Thanks,
Awesome.
Natalia. Vincenzo, how can people get hold of you? Is there any special offers you've got running right now? Is there a website we can put up for you before we?
Yeah, so essentially an offer I'm willing to extend to the Proboxx community. It would be a 50% off on the first month on any type of service you guys book with us. So just to give you a glimpse of what we do, we're a full Amazon and Walmart brand management agency. So we specialize on basically managing brands from A to Z. So PPC, listings, brand, international expansion, everything you may need. And yes, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me like Vincenzo Toscano on all the social media channels. And if you also look for Ecomcy, you're going to also find all our channels. And if you go to our website, we also offering on top of that a free consultation. So happy to jump on a call, give you a free audit, break down your business from A to Z, and tell you how potentially we can add value to your business. Yeah.
Amazing offer, guys. So jump on that. And also I'll put that link up in the video once the recording's done and uploaded on YouTube. And Amit, you have a special offer for any new clients, or if anyone wants to know more about Proboxx and how the portal works, what can we offer?
Yeah, so first of all, we can provide $200 for the first shipment with Proboxx, $200 off. So Amanda, I guess you would add the coupon code, right? And in terms of like, how does it work with the portal and everything, so you can book a demo with me or one of the Proboxx team. We will guide you through the portal and assist you in everything you need in terms of logistics to Amazon, to 3PL, as long as it's related to Amazon and e-commerce in general.
Give me one sec. I've got to try and find the Calendly link to put that up for guys if they want to book with you. We have
I can end it here. 1 second.
Oh, you have
I'll
it?
give it.
Pop
Yeah,
that
I
in.
have it. I have it.
You have it
I have
open.
it open. Yeah. So yeah, I will put in the link. 1 second.
Yeah, and on the website, which I've just put in, thanks, Amit. On the website too, if you guys just want to get an instant quote as well, that's really easy to do. Just head to the website, excuse me, proboxx.io. Awesome, guys. Good luck for selling in 2024. And thank you so much, Vincenzo, for your time. I know you're off on a cruise tomorrow. And Amit, thank you as well. I know it's early for you both. And we'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye for now.
Bye.